this is the first episode in the new studio. Now it looks bare, so for all you interior designers out there that want to, we'll put a plug in for you. And if you want to help us decorate, you want to send us some stuff, we are wide open. Those DMs are wide open for plants, wall things, anything you think that would make this space better.
We don't need too many flowers, though.
We don't need
We want
too
to be
many
a little bit more manly, just saying.
Well, we gotta have a softer side too. So welcome to the show, and today we've got kind of a two-part series, right? And it's going to be geared around finding purpose after your divorce, your breakup, being alone, whatever it may be, right? Your situation. And then the part two of that is going to be a different episode, and that's going to be how do I find the purpose once you do, remarry, you found your spouse, you found your partner, whatever it may be. Like how do you get from where you are right now individually to building a life together, right? And making that solid. So I'm excited for diving into this. I know we've got a lot there, and then we've got a lot on our plate coming up too, right? We've got the event coming up January 29th. Registration, by the time this gets put out, as far as the episode goes here, probably have the registration link open. So if you go check out our website, coachcowboyshow.com, that will be there. If you follow us on Facebook, we'll be promoting it like crazy. So definitely check that out. It's going to be January 29th. And what are we going to be talking about? Well, it's Ember to Flame, and it's igniting your best year yet. So overcoming your past, kind of what we're talking about today, which is rekindling passion or finding your purpose. And then ultimately, how do we set up a goal setting session? How do we set up a roadmap to get from where you are to kind of where you want to be? So definitely check that out. And Josh, I know that and then one other quick thing, Patreon, check out Patreon. So again, we're going to be diving into some stuff. We're going to get into a lot of questions and everything, kind of a Q&A on Patreon, and that we won't have time to get to on this regular show. So go over to Patreon, Coach Cowboy Show, check it out. It's like $5 a month, and has a lot of great information on there as well. So Josh, I know something was kind of on your heart this past week, and you wanted to share a couple things as far as kind of helping people out and just kind of the mindset of this time of the year.
Yeah, thanks, Cowboy. Yeah, I ended up going to church and had this message about people saying, because going up to the new year here, about people want to work out or grow in their faith, or they're looking to be more healthy in diet, all that kind of stuff. So driving back, I was thinking of like just 13 things that kind of hit me with a little bit of help from Ted Lasso, actually. If you haven't seen that, I recommend it. But just some like leadership things, but also just things that make you think about coming into the new year, just to think about, to change your mindset and who you are. Like we talk about that a lot, growth and reflection.
100%.
So first one, be sincere. Very simple there. Stay teachable. See good in others, which I know that's hard, but I feel like that's the best. I've worked on that myself. Happiness is a choice. Winning is an attitude, which I agree with. Have confidence in yourself. I know that's a big one. That's one we kind of talked about, like where we're trying to figure out what's going to make you grow, how to reflect, what's going to help you in our deep conversations going through life. Optimist takes more chances. Everyone differs from everyone else. So like we say, you can't always keep up with the Joneses, but you have your own path, but like we say, we joke all the time that everybody could be in the same boat, but we're in a different seat. 100%. So we could all be there for you. Courage is the willingness to attempt, which, taking that first step is really hard. But like we said, each builds on each other, and then we get going. Vulnerability is a strength, not a weakness, which it's hard to say sometimes coming from dudes, thinking, that being vulnerable isn't always the best thing. But doing the right thing is never the wrong thing. Yeah, that I mean that's like messages we talk about because we both coach. We talk with the kids what to
Hmm.
do right, even though you feel like it's no one's looking. It's always right to do the right thing. Be curious is not judgmental. That's that's a difficult one to sit on your plate sometimes when
Hmm.
you're going through things or you're seeing different things. But things gives you a different mindset out there. And then the last one from famous Ted Lasso is be a goldfish. Don't allow one bad deed to define who you are, because then less than 10 seconds, forget about it like a goldfish.
Yep.
That's something I feel like you can use every day at your work,
Hmm.
um, with other people. We try to talk about it as when we're coaching basketball, like, hey, you missed that shot, don't worry, just go back and play defense. That's all we care about.
Yep.
So those are kind of things I was thinking about just getting up to the new year here that were kind of on my heart, but also just little phrases and things to help people manage what's going on in their
I
life.
love it, man. I love it, and a lot of that's going to tie into kind of what we're going to be diving into today, because what we've done is we've kind of broken this down of how do I find my purpose after a divorce, breakup, being alone, whatever it may be. How do I how do I do this? How do I manage this? So we've broken it down into four different parts, if you will, right? So number one, you've got to acknowledge, you've got to recognize your situation where you're at. Number two, now that you've acknowledged that, you figure out where you are. Now let's reconnect with what you truly want, who you truly are. Number three is take action. I mean, we can't just sit around and think about it all day. And number four is getting into the right mindset, right? Because we can acknowledge, we can reconnect with who we are, we can take action, but if we still have this limiting mindset, it's really not going to it's not going to serve us. So kind of diving into the first one is acknowledging kind of where you are, right? So you just broke up, or the final uh, judgment of divorce has been just passed down, and you're sitting in your empty house now, or in an apartment, or wherever it is, or your girlfriend just broke, whatever your situation is, right? How do you know how do you get past that? I know we've both been in that situation where, you've struggled with it, I've struggled with it, and that can be a super lonely spot. I mean, I don't know if you want to shed any light on that. As far as I know, it's a dark place, and sometimes we try to forget about it, but we also have to recognize where we are.
Sure. I mean, while you're reading those ones off, I was like, when you said action, I was like, oof, that's a
Mm-hmm.
tough one because everybody's like, do I have to do something?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, I was when you were saying all, I was thinking because I knew you were going to ask me the question. So I was like, do I want to go? Do I want to be raw and vulnerable, or do I just want to give you the sugar cookie version of it? But no, to tell you the truth, um, I've had a few hard breakups, and to be vulnerable with the listeners, I took it out on myself, and I was like, oh, it must have been that I wasn't good looking enough, or
Mm-hmm.
this is where I'm going to get really vulnerable. This is why, because I do have this issue. I have a body image issue. So then I turned it into that. It was like, all right, so I just got to go to the gym the whole time. That's the problem. I don't have the best six pack or whatever. So I just kept thinking that way, and then I just realized one day, like just hanging out with a group of guys at the gym, they're like, "You're dumb. Like
Mm-hmm.
you have to. It's not. It takes both of you to work on a relationship together,
100%.
and you have to realize that maybe she just broke up with you because she just it wasn't feeling it anymore. You
Yep.
just can't always think it's your fault. Like there's all like yeah, if you did make a screw up, then yeah, it's your fault. But you can't always think like woe is me that I'm the reason that everything goes bad. But it just I was always in that dark place for a while. Like I was pedal to the metal,
Yeah.
110% to take it out on me, which doesn't help, like you said, when you're in your apartment by yourself
Mm-hmm.
now, looking around like, oh, I have my couch and my TV, and I'm
Yeah.
like, all right, what do I go from here?
100%. And I think the hard part is because a lot of times relationships define who we are, right? You're somebody's son, you're somebody's daughter, you're somebody's husband, you're somebody's friend, a coworker, whatever. But when that is gone, now it's like, who am I? And then I think the biggest thing that I see is to give that space, give it room to just kind of be. And a lot of times people want to jump into something else, like the old adage. This is
Let's say
not
rebound.
yeah, rebound. The best time to get over someone is to get under someone. That's not the best. That's not the best scenario. So, um, you've gotta let that breathe and let the dust settle a little bit, right? And I think ultimately you do need to take some sort of responsibility, right? Like a lot of times we surround ourselves in an echo chamber with friends that are just like, yeah, that's she's, a bad person, or, that person's crazy, or your boss is this or that or whatever. And then there's no growth from it
Yeah.
because ultimately, yes, you're not 100% the problem, like you were saying, um, but you're also not 0% of the problem either, right? There's culpability on both sides. And I think when you can recognize that and stop the blame game, because all you're doing is, when you get into that new relationship or whatever it may be, all that's going to follow you still,
Yeah,
right?
it's all
And
that baggage that's gonna
correct.
follow you with you. Because like you said, in the vacuum, if you just have friends keep telling you, like you said, the girl's crazy, or it wasn't your fault, or
100%.
we saw this coming, doesn't help you grow.
Mm-hmm.
And you just have to take the mindset to like listen to what they say. But if you dig deeper, then you'll realize, okay, I probably should make some changes myself.
Yep.
Which is the hardest thing for coming from a guy to be like, I'm not as great as I thought I was.
Uh-huh. And that's probably one of the hardest steps, is this step right here, is the recognition of it, and taking that responsibility. And I think ultimately when you start to get out, through all the bad stuff, because you're going to go through a bad time, right?
Mm.
And sometimes you just got to hang on, because you've got to go through those different stages of grief and processing all this information, or the situation of life of what's just happened. You've got to recognize that there is hope, right? You've got to recognize that the sun came up tomorrow, or it came up today. It's going to come up tomorrow. Um, People have been through things before, maybe worse than you, maybe not worse than you, but ultimately you can get through this. And, you know, the way I looked at my divorce, I almost looked at it after a certain period of time, is that there's the ability to hit the reset button now. um, I got a second chance of life where a lot of people may not, because they feel stuck in this marriage, or they feel stuck in this relationship, or they feel stuck in whatever they're doing. Where I saw my divorce as, hey, this is a way that I can redo this thing, and I can still, I was 37 when I got divorced. Um, I was 37, and I thought, okay, at first I thought, oh my gosh, I'm a loser, and all these, all the thoughts, right? I'm going to be alone and all these things. And then I got to thinking about it after that period of grief and letting it breathe. I was like, dang, if I meet someone in 8 years or 10 years, right? And I'm with them for the next 40 years of my life, 40 years of marriage, or 45 or 50 years of marriage, that's a long time. And so it allowed me to kind of reshift my mindset, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But I think recognizing that loss is a catalyst for growth and transformation. I think that is a huge kind of mindset shift a lot of people need to make during this time. I don't know if
No,
that's.
I totally agree with you. I do have a side question
Yeah,
for you.
fire away, man.
So, with your divorce, did you also feel that, not doom and gloom, but like
Hmm.
you felt like, oh, I'm that statistic. I
Yeah.
didn't think I'd, like you watch it on TV with your kids, or whatever, and then now you're living it.
Hmm.
Did that make you feel like, oh, we could have made this? You know what I mean? Like, oh, we should have tried hard. You know what I'm saying? For the people that are like, because you said it helped you, but you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah. I don't think I ever, honestly, I don't think I ever got I needed to try harder. I think we went to like 5 different counselors. We went to marriage retreats. We went to a lot of different things. And um, I don't think I've ever sat back and been like, I never gave it my all. There's things that I would change.
of course,
I would show up differently, but ultimately, I believe, God's got a plan, And for whatever reason, he brought us together. We had four incredible kids. Still have four incredible kids. And then that relationship, ran its time and had its purpose, and now it's moved on to something else. So I don't know. I mean, do you think, because your situation is obviously a little bit different than mine, I mean, do you think with your baby mama, like, do you look back saying, man, if I would have only done this, it would have been different? Like, kind of the,
I mean, maybe in the like when it was fresh,
yeah.
and then like when you're in that foxhole and
Hmm.
bombs are flying and everything's
Yeah.
chaotic.
Yeah.
Probably, but I think we both realized in the end it was healthier
Hmm.
for us to be apart.
Yeah.
And I feel like for our daughter now, she'd probably say the same thing. Like we're not, we're great co-parenting together.
Hmm.
Like we still have our, things, which always happens when you're raising a child, a 16-year-old girl who thinks she's 25.
That's the spending habits.
Yeah. Yeah. No, Dad, that's not the cool thing. No, I'm sorry. But no, you're right. I'm sure that I could have done things different that made it that didn't cause extra, chaos on the
Mhm.
back end
Mhm.
of when you're feuding and upset and everything's going to ending. But
Yeah. I
I hope that makes sense to you. I mean, I feel like I was rambling there for a second, but
No, it does. It does, and everybody's situation is different. I mean, I guess the bottom line is, uh, beating yourself up over a broken relationship or whatever it may be, a divorce or whatever. It doesn't matter anymore, right? That the time for you to do whatever you think you should have done has already passed. That door is closed, that window's shut, and now it's time to say, okay, there's nothing I can do about that, but I'm not just going to sweep it under the rug and forget about it. What can I do moving forward?
and learn from it.
100%. And I think that kind of flows into kind of part two, which is how do you reconnect to who you truly are, and you know finding your purpose again, or your drive, right? So now we've gone through the crazy phase of feeling sorry for yourself, and all the different things, and you've recognized that, hey, I can use this setback as a setup for my next thing, right? How do I do that? And okay, now I've hit the reset button. Now I've got a blank slate. What do I do now? Right now, we need to find the core principles of what is important to you. And I've talked about this not on this podcast, but I've definitely talked about it before. Is the pillars of life, right? So everybody's got different pillars for them, whether it's you know for you professionally, for your family, uh, physically, like your physical health, your mental health, your spiritual health, financially. Like, we all have these different pillars of life. And you need to figure out, okay, what is important to me? And, what does an ideal state of a spiritual pillar look like? Like, what do I want my spiritual life to look like? What do I want my relationship with my spouse to look like? What do I want my relationship with my kids to look like? What do I want my relationship with my work to look like? And all of these things. And Tony Robbins actually does a really, really good job of this. And he, like, a lot of times people will say, oh, I want to make $1 million, right? And his famous thing is, well, why do you want to make $1 million? Well, because then I could buy a house and a Ferrari. And it's like, okay, why do you want to buy a house and a Ferrari? Well, because I want to experience this. And he keeps digging deeper and deeper. Why do you want that? Why do you want that? Why do you want to get that? Because ultimately, nobody really wants to make $1 million, right? $1 million doesn't really do anything for you. It's what that money does for you, right? So it's, hey, it creates opportunities, and experiences with my family, right? It allows me to make decisions based on what I truly want to do, instead of what my budget says I'm doing. So really nailing it down to asking yourself, why do I want this? And that will kind of help identify those those foundational things inside of each of the pillars. And I think, just exploring new hobbies, right? And like hey, I went to the gym and I want to do this. And, maybe, pickleball is really hot right now. So go join a pickleball league and join this league and join a book club or start doing this or, different things like that. Hey, I've always wanted to have a podcast before. We'll start a podcast, like just experiment or whatever it may be, but try to figure out what truly kind of makes you come alive in those steps.
I don't. I think it's important to do what you love again. Not like when you're in the relationship, you didn't do things you like together, but if it's like going to the gym more,
Yep.
and getting, because when you're working out or go play pickup basketball and you're doing those things, like they say, it makes you more happy.
100%.
Or like the old saying is, go for a walk in the woods, experience nature and the quiet of that. Like go, like do that. If you don't have time for that, like some of the teacher friends tell me all the time when they're like, hey, I've had a bad week. What I do is take my shoes off, go in my front yard, stand in there with bare feet, touch the ground for 15 minutes.
Touch grass, baby.
Yeah, touch grass. But like you were saying, just find something that you're passionate about that you've always been. You just haven't had, the push. And maybe this is the time that you're like, okay, maybe I should have done this or started this.
Yeah.
And that could bring so many avenues that you could meet new people. You could make better connections. You could have, like we talk about this all the time, you could have that community that maybe it's more positive than some of your boys that just come over and have beers with you or whatever.
Yep.
Sometimes.
Yep.
Gives you that different mindset, and maybe it gives you time for reflection that you haven't had.
100%. And I love that. And we'll get into, like, when you start doing stuff like that, it's like the old crabs in the bucket theory. If you're hanging out with people that are, of a certain mindset and whatever, if you put one crab in a bucket, it will try to crawl. It can crawl its way out. But if you put 5 or 6 crabs in a bucket, you don't even need a lid on the thing, because as soon as one crab starts to crawl out, another one will grab it and pull it back down. And you could literally have a bucket full of crabs and not have a lid on it, and nobody would escape. So sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes those crabs in the bucket, the boys you hang out with, they're pulling you down and they're making fun of you. And they're, oh, you're just a dreamer. Oh, you can't do that. Oh, you're, whatever. Right. And we can touch base on that a little bit later, but I think that's huge. What you talked about, just getting out of your regular element and start exploring and getting into, even a vision plan of what does your future look like, buying some different magazines and cutting out pictures and having a vision board and stuff. It can seem kind of cheesy and whatever, but if you truly do that and it's something that you want and desire, then absolutely go for it, man.
I mean, if you speak into it every day, then you see that every day. There's no reason why that can't be a reality.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure where you're going with the bucket crabs because I haven't heard that explanation.
Oh, really?
But it did remind me of, show me your friends and I'll show you your future.
That's a good quote.
That's what I was thinking, because I was like, crabs in the bucket. We'll just roll with this for a second.
But here's where I think, like, you can't just say, I'm a Ferrari, I'm a Lamborghini, I have $1 million, I have $1 million, and sit on your couch, right?
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen. So the only way to get there is by taking action, right? You've got to take action. You've got to stop planning. And this is sometimes where, in full disclosure, I really struggle with.
This is the hardest part, taking action.
Is like going from, hey, yeah, I've got this vision board and I've casted this awesome future, and oh my gosh, I can taste, the crab and the beautiful steaks, and I can do all the, I can picture myself on this yacht and blah blah blah, skiing down the Aspen Mountains in a little place called Aspen. But like, how do you get from living inside your head to living real life? And now it's time to get out and take action.
I mean, that's the $100 million question.
And that's what we're, hey, and that's a good plug for our seminar we got coming up. because that's
Yeah.
what we're going to go through, right? And I think it starts with small achievable goals, right? You've got to get some early wins. You've
Yeah.
got to figure out and put a roadmap together. Plug for our we're going to talk about this uh, in our seminar, January 29th. Go check it out. It doesn't cost anything. It's free.
Amber to flame, igniting your best
Ember.
igniting flame.
Amber's invited too, though.
Your best year yet.
Yes, ignite that best year yet.
Yeah.
But you need to start building momentum. Okay, so you have a game plan together. Start building momentum, because purpose, I think, will, as you start to grow, your purpose is going to grow with it, because purpose grows with progress, right? Purpose grows with progress. It is absolutely true that the more action that we take, the more that we progress, the bigger our vision, the bigger our purpose gets, and the more realistic it gets too.
But I also think even if you take a first step and you go out on a limb, you're like, I'm gonna try to I'm gonna try, like, I want to get back in shape. Let's pretend
Sure.
I'm gonna go to the gym 3 times a week,
Mhm.
and you only do it 2. But don't fall into, like, one of our talkers talked about how you start having those negative thoughts, like, oh, I suck at this. Why am I gonna keep going? Just remember that you taking action out of the breakup or whatever happened, it's gonna be baby steps.
Mhm.
And then when you get, or for some, putting your toe in the water and then getting back out there.
Yep.
I mean, you'll get a win, but you won't notice it right away. I want to say at some stuff.
Yep.
Or it could be at work, like, hey, I want this promotion or something to that effect. Or you're like, this job isn't making me happy. I'm gonna at least put my head down and work, but also look for something else.
100%.
Maybe that's a step.
Yep.
But taking a step is the scariest thing in anything.
Mhm.
Even, like, we can both talk about it. Getting married's a huge taking a step. Like, all right, I think we're ready for it. Hope she says yes. And then you're like, all right, let's do this. I mean, that's a huge step too. I know we're talking about the breakups, but taking action's not fun and not easy.
Yeah.
Unless you have that right mindset that we're trying to talk about.
Yeah. And I mean, we're talking like goals of monetary things and lifestyle and this and that, but it also could be directly attributable to or applicable to dating again.
Yeah.
Right? Like the first person that you meet and go on a date with, what if that's a complete disaster? Now you're like, oh my gosh, dating is so hard. I mean, everybody says that dating is so hard in 2024.
To make it easier for the people, this is what I did.
Oh boy.
Even if my wife is watching, she'll agree. And this is no joke. We heard it on a show, so somebody stole my line. Okay. So she'll confirm that if we need a call-in show. But I just call them to help with the take a step action. If you're using a dating app or somebody sets you up, I know somebody perfect for you. You know all that.
Yeah.
Just make it a meet and greet. There's no expectations on the table, so you're gonna meet them, cool. And then if you set up another one, cool. Make that another meet and greet. Then when you decide that this is gonna work, then make it actually a date. So there's no expectations on the table. If you want to be a gentleman, pay for a meal, cool. You want to do double Dutch, whatever you want to do, just make everything so there's no pressure on yourself. When you go into it, you're just like, all right, I'm gonna meet this girl, get to know about her, ask a few questions, do all that fun, that stuff, like, what do you like to do, But
What's your favorite color?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But if you don't put date in your head, I'm telling you, it's a changer. I'm just saying, that's
man speaking from experience. Yeah, and I think having that the relief or the pressure of, I've got to find my next spouse, I've got to get married again, I've got to do this, I've got to have a girlfriend.
It's society. It's all the pressure, and you see your buddies and all that.
Yeah.
The only thing, the big stuff for me taking action again was, because I only have a daughter at the time, is how is my daughter going to take this? Because when you bring them in, you don't want them to beat the kid too early, and then when you finally get to, and then you break up, you're like, shoot, now she's seeing another failed.
Yeah, but
I know, but I'm just saying that's just how, like,
yeah, and this is important, right? Because a lot of people will beat themselves up because they got a divorce, right? Or they met someone, they introduced their kids, and now they're no longer together. The thing about it is this, and I have talked about this before, is that we are an example for our kids, right? Because I have 4 kids. My kids will probably experience some type of heartbreak.
One of them at least.
Yeah. well, at least one of them, statistically speaking. I'm not trying to speak that over them. I'm just being a realist here. So I think it's important though that you keep an open line of communication with your kids. And this is not the time of, hey, when do you introduce your kids? When do you not like that's not this
Yeah.
is not the show for that. But like you what I'm trying to say is you moving forward and being truthful and honest and not beating yourself up is an example for the kids, right? Because they
Right.
see the situation you've gone through. They see the heartbreak that you've had,
Yeah.
and they've seen you overcome it, maybe fall in love again and break up and everything else. Your kids are going to experience that. And when they're 20 and 30 and 40 years old and they've gone through some stuff, they can say, you know what? Dad went through that. And look at him now. Like
Yeah.
you can be the example for your kids because heartbreak is going to come for them.
Yeah, you can use that failure as feedback.
100%.
Just to show, because you have the roller coaster emotions, and they're like, "Oh, Dad was down here, stuck in neutral, and then poof, he figured it out, and now I can always come to him and ask how to get out of it." It might not be the same for me, but just talking it out and being open with your kids, I think, is great.
Yeah, and I think some of the keys with taking action, whether it's work related, whether it's dating related, is that, like you said, failure is feedback because you're starting to see, is this a real desire, right? Maybe you don't want to be with someone right now because it's just, whatever, for whatever reason, it's like, I just want to be alone.
Work
I
on
like my
yourself-
alone
work on
time. I
yourself.
want to work on myself, or I just want to hang out here for a little bit. And that's fine. Like, failure is a way for the universe, God, whatever it may be, to help teach you, is this a serious desire or is it not, right? So I think the key with it all is perfection is the enemy, because we're never going to be perfect, right? Nothing ever is going to be perfect in everything. I think the key is to take action and just be consistent with what you're and going after what you want.
Understand there'll be speed bumps along the way,
Mhm.
but taking the first step is better than not doing anything and just sitting in your basement staring at your TV
Mhm.
and wondering why nothing has changed.
Yeah.
Which is hard, but
And I think that last part of what you said flows directly right into the fine tuning your mindset. Okay. I think the key with this is you need to let go of your ego and your prideful thinking. Okay. Whether it's, societal stuff, like for instance, me, right? So I have two older brothers and a younger sister. All three of them are married. All three of them have been married for a long time, probably 15, 20 years each. My parents have been married for a long time. There was a little speed bump along the way, but then they got back together and everything's cool. So, and they've been married since the 70s, right? Essentially. And here I am, the one kid who got a divorce after 14 years, and now I'm coming back to the Christmases and the get-togethers and everything else, and answering the questions and doing this and doing that. And it's not bad, but there is some pride and ego of what's wrong with me and whatever it may be. And I think we just need to let all of that go, right? And just don't worry about what they think of you. Don't worry about, and I'm not saying they judge me, of what society may think about you, because the old adage of Facebook is a little wild, because what's that? Insta. Yeah. Anytime somebody shouts out their spouse or their partner or whatever it may be, they're like, oh, they're so amazing and everything. I'm like, they're in trouble. And 6 months later, she's changed her profile picture to her and the kids, and all the pictures of him are gone. He's changed his profile to some gym pic, at Planet Fitness or whatever in the mirror. And you're like, whoops, I think there's something going on there. But you can't worry about other people's opinions, right?
No.
You've got to have a growth mindset of, this is where I'm at. I'm in charge of me, and this is where I'm going. And challenges, like we talked about, they're opportunities to grow. I don't know, what are your thoughts on mindset?
It makes me think of when I was at my one of my low parts, I had a coworker that always said, "Hey, we have a Thursday service. Why don't you come sometime?" And I always gave an excuse. Oh, I'm too busy. I'm
Mhm.
doing this, but I really never was.
Yeah.
But then one day I was just sitting there, and all of a sudden I had this thing to say, "Hey, you should." I don't know if it was a voice or whatever. It's like, you should go. So I called her. She's like, "Oh, me up." Of course, when you go, this is probably anybody's story when you go to church. First time in a long time. Don't worry, the place didn't burn down when I walked in or anything. But I felt like the message punched me right in the face
Mhm.
because that's, you have all those emotions and everything. But not just to say that, but I'm just saying that, yeah, we talk about going to church, and yes, both of us are Christians, but having faith and prayer and having that community can help you with your mindset because you have more people that have that positive. And yes, people are going to say, well, if God was there for you, he would have had this happen. But that's not true. Things happen for a reason. And he maybe, like, people come in your life and go. There's an example right there. God put Bill in my life for 2 years. Then he went away, and I didn't even notice because Jacob came in.
Mhm.
Like, but I'm just saying, like, for mindset, that really helped me a lot. And like, I always believe, but you always, sometimes when you have bad things, you kind of put him on the burner. He's there
Yeah, on the
banging
back
down the
burner.
door, and you're
Yeah.
like, I'm not opening that can right now. But that's just something that just came to me when I was thinking what you were talking about.
Yeah, and along with that is like the gratitude journal, right? And just shifting the mindset of what you're talking about, being around, people with a positive mindset, whether it's faith based or a different group.
Yeah.
Having some type of a gratitude as your as a daily practice, being grateful for where you are, what you have, instead of focusing on what I don't have and the relationships you don't have and the situation you're in and how you're alone and your kids are
There's
away.
always something that could be off worse than you.
100%,
You
man.
just sitting by yourself in an apartment because you broke up, but they could be living on the streets or something.
Yeah.
I know that's extreme. I'm just saying.
Yeah. I mean, but there's probably some people that are going to have to do that. And, again, setbacks, they are a part of the process. You've got to know that even though you've got a vision board up and everything else, it's not just going to be this yellow brick road and everything is always going to be on an upward trend. Things are cyclical. Think about, there's seasons of life, there's seasons literally of the weather. So there's the planting time, there's the growing time, there's the harvest time, and then there's the downtime, right, of winter. And these are all a part of the process. You've got to figure out how do I get there. And I think having the right mindset and just realizing the bigger picture, because a lot of times we can get stuck with this horse blinders on, right, of just focusing so much on this one individual situation that there's opportunities around you.
You have no idea what's going on around you. Yeah,
100%.
exactly.
So the mindset, fine tuning that, I think are big. And just kind of wrapping this up, a couple books that I just wanted to put a quick plug off. One is called Option B, and Facing Adversity, Building Resilience, Finding Joy. It's by Sheryl Sandberg and Adam Grant. It's a great book, obviously, about being resilient. I think that's one of the having grit. We're in Detroit area. Grit is kind of like our motto right now with the Lions and everything.
Kneecaps off.
Biting kneecaps. But having resilience and perseverance, I think, is absolutely vital. And then another book is Designing Your Life: How to Build a Well-Lived, Joyful Life by Bill Burnett. We'll put links for those books down in the show notes. So definitely go check those out. But obviously, kind of like what we're talking about here, kind of is a deeper dive into how do I get from where I want to be right now to where,
point A to point B,
Mhm.
eventually point C, and
and it keeps continuing on
later,
and on and on.
later down the journey.
Absolutely. So,
Yeah.
well, we're going to continue this talk. We've got some questions that Josh and I are going to really talk through on the Patreon. So if you have not subscribed to that, make sure you head over to Patreon, Coach Cowboy Show, and check that out. Subscribe, be a member there. And again, you know,
How much does that cost us?
I think it's like $5 a month.
$5 a month? Okay.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad. And then we've got an event coming up on January 29th. It's going to be from 6:30 to 6:35 to 8:35 because we're bougie like that. Ember to Flame, igniting your best year yet. So go check out coachcowboyshow.com. That's our website, or follow us on socials for the registration link to that. It's free. It's an online seminar. We're going to be talking. We've got a couple guest speakers that are going to be talking. We're super excited. There's going to be a roundtable element to it. We've got merch coming down the pipe that we're talking about. So a lot of great things.
Yeah, I think we're talking about merch.
2025.
Just quick shout out. That
Yeah.
I think the first 30-ish people that sign up might get a little surprise sent to them.
Little surprise. I like surprises. Who doesn't like surprises?
That's true.
So again, go check out Patreon. We're going to continue this conversation, and we'll go from there, man.
Yeah.
That was a good one.
It was. I think it was very insightful for the people that are listening out there. Like we always say, thanks for riding with the coach and the cowboy. Until next time, saddle up and keep chasing those dreams.